Hey everyone, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. So I came back from a run this morning, and it's kind of the run is a mind opener, and I wanted something to kind of settle the mind a little bit. And I'd been listening to a podcast about the significance, the cultural significance of Get Out, the film by Jordan Peele, his first feature film that made a huge impact when it came out. And I wanted to watch his third feature film, Nope, again, because I had rewatched Get Out a number of times. I had rewatched Us two times probably, so I've seen it 3 times in total. And I hadn't rewatched Nope, and for some reason it hadn't really left a huge impression on me, apart from one particular element of it. And I'm not a big science fiction person, but there's an element of science fiction to all of Jordan Peele's films, and he would be considered a horror director, I suppose, at this stage. Large elements of horror in Get Out, large elements of horror in Us. Probably that's the most straightforward horror film I would think. And I wouldn't have classed Nope as a horror film until I rewatched it. And so with if someone hasn't seen it, it's about an alien invasion, essentially. And the real, I didn't really find the alien side of things, the horror part. I thought it was obviously the science fiction. But I did find the idea of being sucked up into the spaceship, or whatever you want to call it, the visuals of that, being trapped in these folds and getting almost claustrophobia off the way he shot it. I found that more horrific than the idea of what would happen after that, when you arrived in the spaceship and so. But the real horror within the film is the story within it about the Stephen Young's character, who was a former child star on a TV show, where a chimpanzee was also Gordy was the name of chimpanzee in the show, and Gordy went mad one episode when balloons were going off, and he mauled and massacred people within it. And the way it's presented in the film is the reason why it's so terrifying, because it replays a couple of the moments within it, and you don't know what Gordy's going to get up to, but there's those slight off camera things that he does, that Jordan Peele does, where he shoots. There's violence going on, and maybe you can see Gordy's paw come up in the air as it comes back down, and you can hear it, but you can't quite see what is happening. And the impact that it has on Stephen Young's character, as he thinks about it, and you can see what's going through when it's brought up to him in the film. And it got me thinking about the idea within some of Jordan Peele's work about he does have animals in it, because there's lots to do with horses in Nope, as well as the chimpanzee scene. And there's elements to the idea of in Get Out, of the idea of black people's bodies being used by white people to live on, and how they're almost seen as kind of cattle and disposable people without being disposable bodies. And I guess you can look at that as a. I remember watching a documentary called Animals. I don't know when it's from, actually. I do have it on DVD, but I remember it being very hard hitting, in the sense of how we just view animals as something that we can benefit from, and that's about it. And it was a pretty horrifying film to watch, I'll be honest. But that reminded me of what he was maybe trying to say in Get Out, or kind of what he was trying to say. There was a lot of stuff in Get Out that he was trying to put across in one film. I don't know how he managed to do it. But then, what separates that, I think what separates that from Us, is the idea of the double and the doppelganger, and that, you know, if we didn't make such a balls up of ourselves, would we need someone else to step in for us? I don't know if that's a bit of a stretch. It probably is a bit of a stretch. I'm sure he wasn't thinking of that, but that's what I take from it sometimes. And I think about Us as a film. I really enjoy Us. I think it's brilliant. I don't know if it's obviously it's not as cultural significant as Get Out, but it's you know, as good, I think, a film, and probably didn't get as much recognition as Get Out did because of the fact it's just more of a straightforward horror film. But I was just thinking then of the three films of a filmmaker of someone like Jordan Peele, who, remember, started on a sketch show. Key and Peele, I love it. I think it's a very, very funny sketch show, and it has loads of just brilliance in it. But when you look back on the scenes now, you can actually see a lot of horror elements to it, and a lot of the what are they called, the skits, they end on a kind of horrific note, or a note that leaves you kind of a little bit perturbed or a bit kind of wounded by what you've just seen. And I think what I needed today after the run, because my head's a bit fried, and then you're out running and you're thinking a lot when you're running. Like, and it was a good run. It's not like it was lashing rain. It was really enjoyable. Like, I like that kind of run. But what I needed was a film to just sit down and watch and not analyze. And I sat down and analyzed the whole thing from start to finish. But it did make me go down this path of this idea of what Jordan Peele is trying to do with his movies. And you know, it was 3 years ago when Nope was made, so hopefully there's another one around the corner. But it made me appreciate the fact that, you know, when you look at all this art that comes out, and it's kind of, it can be throwaway sometimes, which can be really enjoyable. Like I watched Weapons. Myself and Joanne went to see Weapons in the cinema a couple of weeks ago. Really enjoyed it. But, you know, and people talk about the hidden stuff in that and what that's all about. And maybe it is about more than what I took from it. Like, it's just pretty much straightforward horror film with elements of fairy tale in it. And, you know, I might need to watch that again to kind of take something from it, like I did from Nope. And, like, without going off on a ramble, I suppose I am already gone off on a ramble, but without the idea of, people do tend to dismiss horror, if you want to put Nope in the horror genre, as kind of throwaway. But when there's so much more to it, especially with someone like Jordan Peele's working on it, obviously he's greatly influenced by people like Stanley Kubrick and by Hitchcock and probably John Carpenter and the 80s horror revival kind of thing. But he brings a kind of a fresh take on it, and he's able to drag out certain elements of comedy in it, which he didn't really do as much in there's a lot of it in Get Out, but maybe not as much in Nope or Us, but there's some in Nope. But the thinking outside the box and the different elements of that a director can, or as he is as well as a screenwriter, he can take so many elements out of it and turn it into something like that's just gold, and can, on the surface, and like I said, Nope didn't grab me but at the start, but on the surface level it seems like, well, that's an okay film, you know, with high expectations after, you know, Us and Get Out. When you watch it, then it's, you know, on the second viewing, I should say, not in the first viewing, there's so much depth to it, and that I'm probably going to find it very hard to shake the Gordy scenes, the chimp just going on a mad one, because it's so visceral and so it's the Hitchcock thing. It's like, what's next? You know, there's so much suspense to that scene, even more so than what's happening within the grand scheme of the film with the alien invasion. And, you know, we have, you know, Hitchcock could throw out film after film after film, and Jordan Peele doesn't seem to be wanting to do that, which is probably for the best. But when you watch Nope or Us or Get Out, you're like, could you not do one every year and a half, maybe? But maybe I'm asking for too much. And if I ruined any of those films for you, I'm sorry, but they're out there, this spoiler thing. I'd love to do a video about spoilers, but I'm afraid I'll go off on a rant. So maybe I shouldn't do a video about spoilers. Maybe one day I will. but they're really not that important. But anyway, yeah, so if you haven't seen, I'm sure most people have seen Get Out, but the other two, go and watch them and make up your own mind. And yeah, enjoy art, and especially when you need something to relax, if that's what it made me do. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.